Welcome back to the Man Cave, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Kimmy B.
And Lenny.
And this is episode 65 of the ManTFup Podcast. Woo, my goodness. Now, I walked into the Man Cave today, Len, with nothing to talk about. And not because there isn't a ton of stuff going on in the world, because there is, but because there's that much going on that it's difficult to kind of focus in on anything in particular. Everything kind of seems like dire and of importance at this point in the game. But you brought up the fact that obviously we're seeing COVID back in the headlines more than we have in recent months, the last year or so. Obviously, I just got an update that a couple of the pharmaceutical companies were approved for new rounds of vaccines for COVID. We have, a new strain supposedly on our hands. And I don't mean supposedly like, oh, they're making it up. I just have not been following it that closely. And you asked me, like, what I thought about that. And I told you, I got the first round of shots. I got the first vaccine, Moderna, 2 shots. Did I get Pfizer? I don't even remember. I have my little vaccine card somewhere. But after that, I never got a booster. I never officially had, quote unquote, COVID. Took a few tests over the course of the time. I think I had it before COVID actually became a thing. Or right at the beginning when you really couldn't get your hands on a test. Like, what was that, like February, March of 2020? But yeah, other than that, it's been, I don't want to say smooth sailing, but I'm just trying to get back to a post-pandemic life.
Yeah, I find it interesting that people are starting to hear about it again, and it's not everywhere. It's like you would think if it was important news that they would figure out a way to inform everybody, but it seems like they're only informing people that are maybe 2 or 3 or 4 jabs in. I don't know, because I didn't hear about it. The traditional way. I heard about it because I noticed some people with a mask, and I did some research to find out that, hey, this is a thing again. Meanwhile, me and my family have had it 4 times, and none of us are vaccinated. Mm-hmm. And we're here, and I can smell and hear and everything else that's supposed to.
And I have been vaccinated, and I'm here, and I'm healthy, and I haven't had it either. So there's.
It's just interesting timing.
But I feel like part of that is because they know people have burnout. You know what I mean? So the folks that are still being very vigilant and diligent and are concerned and are maybe more at risk. There are some people that never stopped wearing masks. And as far as that goes, I have no, exactly.
To each his own.
1,000%. And I've even said it to my mom. Like, if I was flying on an international flight, I'd probably throw a couple masks in my bag just because. If you think about it, the Asian culture has been wearing masks for decades at this point. And I know part of that has to do with air quality in some of the cities. They deal with very, very intense levels of smog. And then others do it out of a straight up courtesy to others. If they're not feeling well, it's one of those things that they throw on as a courtesy to the people around them. It's cultural. If you discuss it with them, I know that it's been brought up on numerous occasions and folks are like, yo, I used to think it was so weird. And then when I did a little research or I asked questions, they were like, no, it's just a courtesy thing. Throw on a mask. That way you're not coughing in people's faces or whatever. And so I'm like, listen, whatever floats your boat at this point. As far as the vaccines go, I think that, again, if you're a person that is at risk and this is, you got all of the boosters, I don't think that there's anything anybody can say that will deter them from getting additional vaccinations, much like there have always been people that have gotten the flu shot every single year. And when the pneumonia shot came out, they got the pneumonia shot every single year.
Yeah, the only difference with the COVID vaccine is the government's still paying for it.
Okay. Do we have a problem with that?
I guess not, because you're paying for it.
Yeah.
You're paying for it. It's if it's something that's going to be a choice at this point, they don't pay for flu vaccines, and the flu comes out every year, severe strains. They don't pay for that. They don't pay for a lot of things. So it's got a lot of people wondering, because the pharmaceutical companies have already made multi billions of dollars off of this, and where's the money still coming from, and why are we still paying for it?
We're not the only country in the world paying for vaccines.
I don't give two shits about the rest of the countries.
Well, what I'm saying to you is, though, that's something that we fight for regardless. Like, you have plenty of Americans out here that are like, yes, you should be paying for that vaccine and other vaccines and the flu vaccine. So there's a segment of the American population that's going to be angered and outraged by the fact that the government is paying for medication. And then there's going to be another part of the American population that's like, finally, now can we do this with insulin, and can we do this with cancer treatment?
If it was something that was across the board, that's a different story. You know what I mean? It's not, though. It's just this in particular vaccine, and they're paying for a lot of doses that might never get used. Mm-hmm. So it's not like, oh, that person got a vaccine, a booster, we're going to charge the government for it. No, it's paying for this stuff in advance that might never get used. Mm-hmm. So that, I mean, that almost goes to like, waste. Mm-hmm. If you ask me. I mean, if it's, I get the government.
I think the government spends our money on way worse things.
Oh, yeah.
than some vaccines.
Let's get on to health, right?
Well, okay, Lenny, that's horrible. I'm going to need you to work on your transitions.
Well, whatever.
What Lenny isn't going to tell you is that's the other part of this conversation.
Because we'll end up going down the budget train, and that's going to...
I get it, but let's just work on transitions. So, yeah, we could talk about health. One thing that I did notice, though, while Lenny is saying how, he didn't hear about this in conventional ways, something that is popping up in more conventional ways that I'm loving is the conversation about food in this country in particular. We discussed it on this podcast a couple episodes back. I discussed a book that I absolutely love, which is In Defense of Food, and just kind of understanding how we've gotten to the place that we've gotten as far as pesticides and hormones and organic and diet fads and trends, and that, the food industry is a billion, if not $trillion industry beyond just, cattle farmers and people who raise, pigs and people who work in poultry and dairy and all of the rest of that. Do you know what I'm saying? Like, it's so much bigger. It's every time a new trend comes out, it generates billions of dollars for the food industry across the board. Like, so when we come up with keto, when we come up with Atkins, when we come up with the Mediterranean diet, like literally the industry and all of its kind of, tributaries mass produce products that fit whatever narrative we're spinning at the moment regarding diet and health. But I'm loving the fact that as far as TikTok, Facebook, Instagram, I've seen a lot of videos coming out recently just discussing, certain chemicals that are allowed to be used in this country that are banned almost everywhere else on the planet. Mm-hmm. I don't know if you've seen it, but a lot of people talking about how you can go to Europe and eat like a piggy, you know what I mean? Pasta and pizza and everything. And not only do you not gain weight, you feel healthier, you feel better. Somebody made a joke the other day, like, I smoked a pack of cigarettes, I drank a bottle of wine, I ate nothing but fettuccine Alfredo.
It's still got vitamins in it.
Well, I mean, the food is fresh, it's seasonal, most of it is locally sourced. They eat very different. But again, it goes back to the things that they're not allowed to put in their food to begin with. And it's just, it's very good to see the conversation, because that was one of the things, Len, I swear to God, before I even knew you, before COVID hit, I remember doing a reel for Instagram, sitting in my studio, and I was like, listen, people, relax, because everybody was like, I worked with a girl at the time who was like, what is that, like a nervous Nelly, right? She was 0 to 100, like her and her now husband literally would share a bed, would wear a mask, and had a face shield on, and would go to sleep like that every single night. And we would FaceTime them just so that we could see them. Do you know what I mean? Like, they were just... and so before COVID was, like, really here, she was talking about it. I was like, well, you relax, my God. Like, first of all, you're healthy. You Peloton every day. You run. You eat well. Like, stop tripping. So I had done a reel kind of just talking about you can't boost your immune system overnight, guys. Like, this is a bigger conversation that we need to be focused on, not just when there's a looming, situation. It's something that we should be really discussing much more openly and much more frequently. And unfortunately, we had to lose 1 million Americans and, millions of people around the world. But it seems like that conversation is finally starting to get the attention that it deserves.
The health.
Yeah. Chemicals in our food. What do you mean? It was very clear. Chemicals, what you're putting in our food, how we should be eating, what we should be doing.
I mean, for me, I don't know. I like to connect the dots, and the food quality's been going down for
decades.
50 years.
Decades.
50 years.
Well, since the great chemical revolution.
Getting away from fresh foods. The pharmaceutical industry's been going up for 75, 100 years. You know, and it just seems like they work together. And now, along with that is the non-Barbie physique for women and men. Listen, it feeds into it because if you want to be healthy, it's not only your food, it's your body, it's everything about you. You know, and we've talked before about Europeans, how they're predominantly thin. I mean, my grandmother was from Italy and she ate fresh food every day, and she was a little chubby little Italian lady, which is fine. She lived to be in her 90s because she ate real food every day.
Well, yeah, and that was what we discussed in that podcast. It was, you know, you have family members who could, again, drink a pint of whiskey and smoke a pack of cigarettes, but they were growing their vegetables in their backyard. Their milk was coming from the dairy farm down the street, hormones, pre-GMO, all of these, antibiotics and things that were being pumped into the animals where we get, our sustenance from. And it's something they've taught us since we're little and for generations. You are what you eat.
Yeah.
Right? Like.
Well, they don't teach that anymore, really. When we were kids,
But you have kids, and you teach it to your kids, and you teach it to your kids' kids. And we talked about the fact that we have food deserts, like, just here in South Florida, if you're east of 95, if you're along the Biscayne corridor, Federal Highway, whatever, you run into a grocery store every mile, for God's sakes, whether it's a Trader Joe's, a Publix, a Winn-Dixie, a Fresh Market, a Whole Foods, a Plum, or whatever. You go west of 95, and I'm not talking about in the more affluent areas, but like, in some of the more disenfranchised or lower income neighborhoods, it's bodegas, it's corner stores, it's fast food joints, and then maybe a value grocer or something like that.
The fast food industry has really, I think, damaged the health of this country.
But again, I don't disagree. That's another thing that I've seen making the rounds, and I've known this for a while. The thing about the McDonald's French fries and why they're all perfect and they never have a bruise on them, and it's because the potatoes that McDonald's buys are literally flawless. Well, if you know anything about vegetables that come out of the ground, they're not flawless. Yeah. But it's the chemical that they spray on these potatoes, the farmers that literally sell to McDonald's, and it's so poisonous that they won't go outside for like 24 or 48 hours after spraying the potatoes that McDonald's then buys and we then consume. Yeah. You know what I mean? And it's like, somebody's letting them get away with this, though. And when did that become a thing? I don't mind if my French fries have brown spots on them.
Well,
that's crazy. That
all goes back to that crazy conspiracy theory that the government is allowing this to happen.
Well, and I mean, they're clearly allowing it to happen because the EPA, the FDA, these are the organizations that regulate all of these things. And again, when you're talking about the FDA, we discussed this. I think we have, what did I say? Was it 19 chemicals that are banned or substances that are banned, and it's over 1,400 in the EU. I gave us way more credit thinking it was like 60 or 70.
I think it's 9 that are banned here.
I think that it's increased, though, because there's other things, like they're coming after red dye, 40, whatever it is now. Like you've seen like certain candies that are very, very...
Skittles?
Yeah. I mean, but anything that has that. And a red M&M, I think, in the red coating. If you have a red candy, for the most part, unless it's literally all natural, vegan, organic, blah, 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 it's made with this stuff.
Not covered with a strawberry.
No. But I also just hosted an event, and this kind of goes back to when you were talking about, the vaccines, because that was one of my biggest, concerns following COVID. Whether you wanted to get vaccinated or not was 100% your prerogative. But then blaming sicknesses that happened after on the vaccine. Like you started to see younger men testing positive or presenting with colon cancer and things like that. And it's like, that's not necessarily the correlation that needs to be made. The correlation goes far beyond a vaccine that they had 6 months ago or 8 months ago or a year ago. These are things that have been in place for decades. Like you've been eating
typically take time
this food.
to develop.
And on top of that, when you don't have health insurance or it's not, readily available to everybody, the likelihood of you going and getting checked is very slim. I mean, there's people who have insurance who won't do it, especially when you're talking about men. When you're talking about heart disease and things like that, we just last year, I don't know if it was the Cancer Society or somebody stopped advocating for breast exams for young women. Like they took the literature out and it was like, why would you eliminate a resource that would teach younger women how to take preventative measures, right? Like that's just crazy to me. Why would you feel that has no value? Especially since we're seeing cancer diagnosis increase, and in particular in younger patients when it comes to things like breast cancer, different gynecologic cancers, and things like that. I just hosted an event for an incredible nonprofit called BRCA Strong, and they had some amazing doctors there. And this was some of the harrowing, information we were given. Yes, we're making progress as far as, research and treatments that are available, but the problem is also getting worse. And that was one of the things she said. She's like, it's obviously, unfortunately alcohol, it's high levels of stress, but it's also, the food we eat. And that's usually the first thing your doctors will ask you, when you're discussing anything, high blood pressure, cholesterol, if you're going in, I'm feeling lethargic, like what's your diet like? What's your exercise routine? What's your stress level
I don't know.
like?
I've been to a lot of doctors and they don't really ask you that. They say, your blood pressure's high, you should take this.
What doctors are you going to?
I've been to a lot. I had one that I thought was really about getting you healthy. And he said, you need to take cholesterol, blood pressure, and thyroid medication.
You said no to all of them.
I said, I'm not really a
pill taker.
Doc, it's not my thing. I'm like, can't you fix this with diet? He's like, yeah, you could fix it with diet, but I'm not going to see you again unless you take these. That's what a doctor said to me. And this guy was from South Africa, and he was about helping people. Mm-hmm. And he's like, I can't be your doctor anymore if you're not going to take these meds. I said,
that's wild.
Peace out.
Because you also have other doctors, and again, these are, people that I've seen, not just on social media, but also that I've worked with directly. We have some incredible medical institutions here in South Florida that are really all about the kind of comprehensive approach. Like, obviously, they trust the science and they trust medicine, but they really do focus on holistic, natural means of getting you healthy as well. Especially, and maybe it's the female doctors that I've dealt with in particular when you're talking about breast health, heart health, because those are the things that tend to impact women at an exponential rate. Obviously, breast cancer is one of the leading killers of women. So is heart disease. And, they really do push diet, alcohol consumption. That's something that they talk about, religiously, the amount of rest that you're getting, making sure that you're exercising. So these are things that the doctors that I've come in contact with are advocating. Again, I'm also not sick, and I haven't had those issues like where it's like, hey, they have the opportunity to prescribe something.
What you mentioned before about, do you remember what the test was? You could do it so everybody could see how it works.
Oh, the self-breast exam.
I'm just saying.
Wow. That was an interesting redirect there, counselor. Let me tell you, that was just absolutely ridiculous. But everybody knows you can Google it.
You can make
very easy. You just feel along the side. You feel for lumps. Your boobies. I'm sure there are many husbands out there that wouldn't mind helping their wives, boyfriends, girlfriends, whatever. I mean, listen, you can make it a teamwork makes the dream work. Couples.
That is clearly just an example of what's been going on in this country for the past 30, 40 years. The educating kids about food, educating kids about government. All that stuff is going away. All those things we took for granted when we were kids. We had cartoons that were about all this stuff.
We did. Do you remember the egg guy with the pyramid of food? And he looked like a cowboy. He had like a big cowboy hat on, and he was the egg guy.
I remember the pyramid.
He touched the pyramid.
Yeah.
But it's also, again, it falls on your parents. Like my mom, we've talked about this. Like my
I
mother.
get it, but we've talked about parenting in this country, and that,
It's a lot of excuses, though. We're always so quick.
That,
But
and the affordability. You could buy a whole meal at McDonald's for $6. And
a whole meal, you can buy a meal for your family at some of these places.
Yeah,
for $6.
So it's like they've made it so easy and convenient for you to poison yourself, and so difficult to not poison yourself. It's almost like.
But at what point do you ManTF up and you take matters into your own? And I say this because these books have been available. We've known about diets and fasting and all of these fads for years. We've seen the correlation between expanding waistlines, declining health. So the fads aren't helping. And it's crazy because the people in this country that are into fitness are not extremists, because obviously you have plenty of healthy people, but that's usually what you see. We're never, again, given a middle ground. You either see my 600-pound life, or you see these, insane, like American Ninja Warriors or these bodybuilders, or you know what I'm saying? Or the people
probably, if you saw them when they weren't in competition, they would be 15 or 20 pounds heavier.
Yeah, but do you understand what I'm saying? Like, there's no kind of hey, here's just a happy, healthy middle ground. To your point, when you're in Europe, that's just what you see. It's what the average person looks like.
People are healthy.
But the average person walks there. And again, like we said, it's, we're also we're a consumerist society, right? Like, we want what we want when we want it. We want strawberries 24/7. And guess what? Strawberries aren't in season 24/7.
They are in Florida.
They are. And that's a blessing of living here, but not in Wisconsin.
No.
Not in Maine. You know what I mean?
Not
but when you walk into a grocery store in January in the Northeast, you can find strawberries, and not just the ones that are frozen. And so it's kind of like, again, there has to come a point in time where you start to kind of, point the finger back at yourself. Yes, we need to hold the pharmaceutical companies accountable. We need to hold the, care providers accountable. You need transparency, but then you also, again, have to have a little time in the mirror and look at what you're doing. And that takes me back to, like I said, that reel that I made. And I've said this repeatedly on this podcast. When we started talking about COVID and they started to say who is most at risk, and they started listing off those underlying factors, I've said it. I immediately was like, America is screwed. Just because, again, high blood pressure, cholesterol, heart disease, people with hypertension, all of these things, like obesity, diabetes. We talked about all these things. These are chronic issues in this country in this century, and have been, again, for decades.
I think part of it is, the acceptance of people as they are, or their feelings getting hurt, or all of that stuff is adding to that.
Yes,
it's adding to that.
But so is Americanism, and
yeah.
by Americanism I mean bigger, better, more value, bang for your buck, all of these things, right? Like, we used to have more European portion sizes in this country. Now you walk into a restaurant and not only do you want to eat the oversized meal that you ordered, but they're giving you one to go for free. Yeah, yep. Olive Garden, I'm talking about you. Do you know what I'm saying? Like, literally, that's their advertising ploy to get you in the door. All you can eat buffets. Like, look at these cruises that people go on, where that's literally all you do is pull a slot machine handle and stuff your face for 7 days. Like, you walk into a Costco, a BJ's, like, it's hard to, I don't want to say control what your kids consume, but when you've got 72 little boxes of cereal in your house at all times, and 400 mini bags of chips, and 4 cases of whatever soda or juice box or whatever, because more bang for your buck. Like, everything we do is just over the top. Our refrigerator, we have people who have multiple refrigerators.
How long does a bag of chips last once you open it? Not long. every time you walk in the kitchen, you're like, oh, I'll just have one.
Oh, I thought you were going to say because they go
No.
bad.
Yeah,
You're saying,
they don't
no,
go bad.
You
They
eat
don't.
'em.
You can leave the fucking bag open for a year. They won't go bad. They have so many fucking chemicals in them.
But yeah.
But
yeah.
you know, you buy this giant bag of Cheetos at BJ's.
But it tells you on the back, 6 Cheetos is a serving size.
Yeah.
Who is sitting there portioning out their 6 Cheetos and then putting
They're having
screwing-
6 Cheetos every time they walk in the kitchen, and then they're coming up with reasons to walk in the kitchen so they can have 6 more fucking Cheetos. And that's it's you know, it's a very gluttonous society.
But that's self-control. You can't blame that on anybody else.
That goes to
but yourself.
Okay, so if you look at the fact that we're taking PE out of
Wait,
school,
where have they taken PE out of school?
any
I'm not.
kid can opt out of PE just as easy as anyone can become a female today. It's just it's that simple. If you don't want to go to PE, you don't have to, because we don't want to hurt your feelings.
Is that
when I was a
really real?
kid,
Did somebody please leave
when
a comment?
I was a kid,
That's wild.
When I was a kid, you had
Of course
to
you did.
do
It was a grade.
X amount of shit every day. Jumping jacks, push-ups.
We didn't have to do that, but you had to take. We had physical education.
Yeah, we had like the presidential.
Physical fitness test.
Yeah.
Arnold Schwarzenegger was the guy.
And we had
it.
to, we had to pass this test.
Mm-hmm.
Kids nowadays forget it.
Yeah, you have to do the arm hang.
Yeah,
it
they
was
couldn't do
crunches.
shit
It was run a
nowadays.
mile.
They couldn't do shit.
I mean, we still have elite level athletes, but I understand what you're saying. En masse, a whole school
Elite level
can't.
athletes are a percent.
No,
of
I
a
get it.
percent
But
of a
I
percent
understand
of
what
this
you're saying.
country.
When did that
The
happen?
rest of them is fat, lazy
This is
bastards.
what happens. But this is what happens when you don't have kids. You don't know that they took PE out of school.
It's I mean, it's just they took the arts out. They took these are the things that go to. We talked about. There's a lot of people in this country that have to work a lot to support their families.
Mm-hmm.
Both parents have to work.
Mm-hmm.
That's got to give somewhere. So now you take the education system and you take out all of these fundamental health things and
That's mental health. Yeah.
and these growth things like arts and stuff like that. And before you know it, what do you have? You have a bunch of kids who are,
But you also have parents who would rather their kid be
We're a
safe in their
generation-
room
we're a generation
playing
that-
video games. You know what I'm saying? Than be outside on a bike playing. And I saw those comments like literally under one of the podcasts that we did, and people were losing their minds because I don't know what I said. I was like, we used to go out and you'd be gone literally from the time you left summer vacation, from the time you left the house and jumped on your bike, you'd be gone until, I don't want to say
Sundown.
after the sun, and sometimes even later. Like my mom, I used to call my mom leaving my friend's house and be like, meet me at the top of the street. And I lived in the burbs. Like there was a farm on my street. So I was scary. I'd make my mom walk to like the top of our street and I'd ride my bike, pedal hella fast to get to the top of my street. And then my mother would meet me and we'd walk the bike back. But do you know what I'm saying? Like that to me was having a childhood. Like that was exciting. People like, oh yeah, now we know better. And I'm like, what do you know? I don't know. You don't think there were predators 20 years ago? You don't think there were predators 30 years? Of course there were. There's always been nut jobs and lunatics. And it's like, I don't know. Like I never, even like the latchkey kid thing, like my mom always worked and my stepdad was a pilot.
I would almost say that kids are probably safer today outside than they were 30 years ago, because every house they walk by has a
There's
camera.
a Ring camera.
We
have a phone that can track you.
Yes, every person that you walk by has a camera, a phone, a this, a that. When I was a kid, there was none of that shit.
Yeah.
You got lost. I knocked myself fucking out cold. I think I was out on the ground for 2 fucking hours before I woke up. Nobody
Really?
knew. Nobody came fucking looking for me. I was fucking out cold.
I'm sorry.
But, it's we don't have that anymore. And I don't think that would happen nowadays. I think kids are safer nowadays outside in the real world than they were then, because we had the same creeps then that we do now.
Mm-hmm.
It's just we know more about them.
And I get all of that. So we always come back to the fact that it's definitely cyclical. But to me, in this particular conversation, obviously we need to call people out. We were discussing the fact that, cancer cases are actually increasing and they're presenting younger and younger. But when you look at the correlation or the common denominator, right? And some of these people are healthy. Some of these people are fit, they're active, but you can't undo 30 or 40 years of putting this shit in your body unchecked, right? And so when we've set up a society where we don't encourage young men to go get checked, we have a 40-year mark. At 40, that's when everything starts to fall apart. It's like the warranty on your car. 40,000 miles, 40 years
50,
old.
You're getting the finger.
Yeah, literally and figuratively. So, I mean, that's funny. But we need to change that conversation. Like, there should be nothing wrong with at 25, a guy going in and having a colonoscopy. Just make sure everything is good down there, especially if you're not going to mandate that these, that the food industry regulate itself and stop using the shit that's killing us.
It's everything that's in our society that's cheap is dangerous and poisonous. Everything.
Well, I mean, we talked about it. It goes even to health and beauty standards, right? When we talk about makeup, when we talk about hair care products, cleaning products,
everything.
You're coming from a generation. So you're talking, Lenny, and I love it when you actually make sense to me. Like the words you're saying in your head just are clicking. But no, your grandmother probably made her own cleaning solutions to some degree, right? Like a little apple cider vinegar,
and whatever.
But it didn't kill them. And now we think we're winning because you can walk into a Walmart or a Target or a CVS and grab a bottle of bleach or a bottle of Fabuloso or whatever else or some soft scrubs.
Simple
and you're like, ooh, yeah. And it's like, nah, that just take a whiff. Yeah. There goes 10,000 brain cells, right? Do you know what I mean? And it's like, that's crazy. Your laundry detergents, the shit that you're literally washing your clothes and then putting on your infants. The chemicals in there.
It's all got chemicals in it. It's all leaching into your body.
Did you see they were talking about, and this is something that's relevant to your daughter, it's relevant to me, it's relevant to Louisa who's in here, athleisure wear. It's something we've talked about on the podcast. They were talking about the chemicals. Did you send that to me?
Yeah.
The chemicals that are in your leggings.
Yeah.
And literally,
particularly
in the crotch area, where many women do not wear underwear and are encouraged not to, especially if you spin class. Like, if you do your research, they'll tell you if you can avoid wearing underwear when you're doing things like this, you're better off because. What do you mean?
Who tells you that?
Doctors. I mean, professional. Just because from a hygienic, not the people making the clothes that are telling you there's chemicals in the crotch. Obviously, no. But if there weren't chemicals there, it would be better for you hygienically because sitting in that moisture is not good. So just whatever, and tightness in your vagina, it's not good. That's how you get yeast infections and things like that. Sorry guys, welcome to mad science. But just seeing that flip me out, I was like, are you fucking kidding me?
Everything.
Right now?
I mean, people don't realize any chemically.
What are those called though?
Carcinogens?
No. There's the chemicals are called. There's a name now that's becoming trendy for those particular chemicals.
Yeah, because they absorb through the skin.
Yeah.
They're
but you know what I'm talking about. They have a name that's being used that you'll see in articles and things like that. But yes, they part of the problem is they are carcinogenic for sure.
Yes. But there was a website I showed someone 5 or 10 years ago. I think it's
but that's most of our clothes.
cosmeticdatabase.com, I think it is.
Well, there's EWG is the best one.
Cosmeticdatabase.com. If you go there and you put anything you use in there, it will give you the rating.
Yeah. Well, Environmental Working Group is the best one.
Yeah, and there's products that you think that advertise as
clean
and organic, and they might have one product that is, but the other products are not.
But it's again, it goes back to educating yourself and knowing how to read a label. That goes for your food, it goes for the products that you're using, and understanding what a phthalate is, what a silicone is, what these things look like, what they do. The scariest part is, again, we discussed it in that episode on the podcast, with YouTube and, makeup tutorials, you're seeing tons of young kids delving into this world earlier than they ever would have before. And it's not that parents are necessarily letting their kids wear makeup outside. It's just they're letting them play. And some of these kids are monetizing these YouTube channels. But it's like when you think about what they're doing, and that's basically it's virgin skin. It's pores that are super absorptive, and these chemicals are dangerous. And if you're not paying attention, you're adding an extra 15 years of exposure to some of these kids. Young people that wouldn't have started wearing makeup until they're 15, 16, 17 are starting at 6 and 7 and on a consistent basis, and that's crazy. Or painting nails or putting acrylics on kids, or, you think about the chemicals that we use when we straighten hair, whether it's a relaxer or it's a keratin treatment. There's formaldehyde in a lot of these products, and you're putting it on a head that was just washed under warm water, so your pores are open, and it's getting absorbed right into your brain. Yep. And then you wonder why, people who work in the beauty industry are at this exorbitantly higher risk for things like breast cancer or cancers of all types, and it's because they're dealing with these chemicals.
Yes, people
day
don't
in,
realize
day
how
out.
much stuff goes through your
absorbed
skin.
right through your skin.
Right through your skin.
Especially you come out of a hot shower and then you go rubbing a lotion on or an oil or something with.
It's right through. Because I deal with a lot of chemicals. Mm-hmm. Sometimes I wear gloves, sometimes I don't, depending on what it is. But yeah, acetone. I deal a lot with acetone. Your skin will just dry out immediately.
Yeah.
It sucks the moisture right out.
It's so crazy. I was taking nail polish off the other day with nail polish remover, and it said it was a non-acetone one. And when I tell you, it burned my thumb, and I don't know, it's because I just don't use it very often. And there was just that weird, you know what I'm talking about? When it feels like I put a chemical on there. Mm-hmm. And it didn't smell crazy. It smelled like regular old nail polish remover. But I don't know if I was but it was disgusting. And I was like, oh my God, now I just don't want to put nail polish on my fingers anymore. And nail polish in general has multiple, I want to say at least 8 different carcinogens in it.
Yeah.
And we have fun doing that on infants, for God's sakes. So.
Yeah, and people think their nails are impenetrable, but they're not.
No, again, super absorbative.
They suck it up.
But I like this conversation because it's just about educating yourself. And yes, we can hold the government accountable, and I'm, glad that I'm seeing more people talking about it and hopefully spreading awareness. But at the end of the day, it's on you to take it seriously. It's on you to, read a book, do your research, and figure out whether or not, that bag of whatever that's got all those funky chemicals in it is worth whatever long-term effects it could be having. I'm not saying give them up 24, forever. You can have a bag of hot Cheetos. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, anything in moderation, but you have to start.
But yeah, when you keep it stocked in your house and your kids are growing up on this from, the time they're infants.
Yeah, healthy snacks. How about giving them some fucking peanuts or, something, at least something that was actually grown and picked grapes.
Well, the beauty of it is, I told you, that's one of those things that gets passed down to you, though, from your parents. My mom used to literally grind whatever she had for dinner. She would cook herself dinner, and she would, with a food grinder, grind it up and that was my baby food. So if she had lamb chops or if she had a steak or if she had, grilled vegetables, mush it down, feed it to the kid. And I was always the loser in school that had, turkey and cheese roll-ups and, a cucumber salad. And if there was something healthy in a lunch, it was give it to Kim. Oh, granola bar? I don't want this. Kim will eat it. But I'm grateful for that because, I think that you create habits early on. We weren't always an organic family, but we have been for a very long time now.
This is one of those.
And that's not a privilege thing.
Podcast that should spread across the entire population of this country. It just should. This should be important to everyone in the fucking country.
Yeah.
And whether, and granted, some parents can't teach that or can't do healthy things, but, why can't...
Well, you can't teach what you don't know.
Exactly.
But if you know you don't know it, you can educate yourself.
Yes. And this is something that kids should be taught again is, how to eat healthy.
And what happened, though, honestly...
School fucking lunches are junk.
1,000... Well, I also want to say, but with schools, we talk about education a lot. Why is that not a part of our public education system in the sense of bringing in parents and educating parents and kids together? To me, that should be an after-school program. If you can make the time to come in and do a cooking class or a nutrition class for the family, why not do things like that?
How about just teaching the kids? Because the kids are going to go home and they're going to go, look what I learned today in school. Look what they told me about this and look what they told me about that.
They are, but it still has to be important to the people who go out and buy the food.
Course.
It's one of those things that should be a parenting skills class along with Lamaze. They should, that should be part of healthcare, advocating, healthy nutrition and instilling good habits at a young age. It's the same thing with physical activity.
I just see and I hate to go back to this because it's I see this whole empowerment and non-body shaming and stuff, things causing this. It's perpetuating the thing, because if kids start to get heavy when they're 10, 12, 14 years old,
we have
they
obese kids at 4 and 5.
But I'm just saying, the kids that can start to really take care of this on their own. I just want to punch parents in the face when I see healthy parents with little fat kids. I want to punch them in the face. But
if you ever get sucker punched on the street, just understand
that's
it's not
why.
about you. It's because your kid's fat.
I know trainers that have kids who are obese. I'm like, it's what they're fucking eating. It's what you're feeding them. Oh, I know, but but you know what? So it's if you pick on a kid who's overweight, you're a bully. If you pick on a kid who's overweight and he changes his mind and decides to get in shape, what are you now? Are you a bully, or did you save the kid's life? Do you know what I mean? It's there at some point something's got to give, and the more you accept this stuff, the more that it's going to be abused, and the more that people are going to say, oh, it's okay if he's 20 pounds over. He'll lose it when he's a teenager. Oh, it's okay if he's 50 pounds over. He'll lose it when he's an adult.
But again, Len, and I think that I agree with you, but as somebody who's dealt with eating disorders, not body dysmorphia, but definitely, I was a figure skater and a cheerleader, and that just comes with its own set of demons. And I had a Russian figure skating coach that told me I was fat when I weighed 70 pounds.
Like I said, my grandmother was 90-something years old. She was a cute little chubby Italian lady. There's nothing wrong with having a little weight on you, and there's nothing wrong with people accepting that. But what it's going to is beyond that.
Well, no, but I think that part of the reason it's going beyond that is because it's become normalized. And it's normalized, but it's normalized because the shit that is in our food is leading children to be this way.
Oh, yeah.
Do you understand what I'm saying? So it's like you could be looking and going, well, all he's eating is cereal, or all he's eating is, fruit cups or whatever, but it's the sucrose and it's the corn syrup and it's
sugar.
Or it's again, the chemicals that aren't able to, or I'm giving him diet this or diet that, but it's like, yeah, but now there's a fake sweetener in it that your body can't break down. So it's not understanding. And I think that there are people spinning their wheels. Like, I know there's a lot of young girls in their 20s right now being diagnosed with something called PCOS. And a lot of them are figuring it out because all of a sudden they just start retaining weight, and it's a hormonal thing. It's painful, it's frustrating, acne and all of these things. And it's wild because, again, it's something that nobody ever talked about, and now you're hearing more about it now. And when I have these conversations with friends, some of them are fitness instructors. One is a girl, she works at Cycle Bar. She's in incredible shape, but even for her it's frustrating because it's like, when your hormones are all over the place. But I can't help but think, if you go back 20 years and what did you grow up eating? And not that you ever ate poorly, but just, you can think you're doing all the right things. You can go and buy chicken and grill it, but if it's chock full of shit, you're messing up your
Here's
inside.
The beauty of this whole conversation is, no matter how old you are, if you change your eating habits and the intake and what you put into your body has the capability of getting rid of most of the poison that it's taken in over the years, and it has the ability to heal.
Yeah. The human body is phenomenal. It's like you can stop smoking within 48 hours, your lungs literally start to repair themselves.
Yes, you have to, but you have to start, and you have to educate yourself, and you have to do it. And
we also need to demand
that whole thing I brought up about the straws before. Which I know, it's save the earth, save the turtles,
You're talking about paper straws.
The paper straws,
okay.
Yes.
That have been mandated in many coastal communities, I know for a fact. Yeah.
So paper straws in general are coated with chemicals that are forever chemicals.
That's what they're called.
Yes.
Forever chemicals.
Which means your body can't process them in any way, shape, or form.
Wow.
So when they're in you, they're in you. like our bodies are made up of X amount of percent of water, but we have heavy metals in our bodies. It's part of us. Magnesium. It's all part of us. Those chemicals can't come out of your body. So, these are the things that people don't take into consideration. I mean, you want to mandate something different? Mandate a metal straw.
But who knows? And who knows that though? Like, how many people are out here doing research on their paper straw? They think it's paper, not understanding that paper, in order for it to be. I mean, your regular paper has
education
chemicals.
To you guys. When you wipe your tush with a piece of toilet paper and it gets wet and your finger goes through it, that's normal paper. When you drink something through a straw and it still looks like a straw, it's not normal paper.
I mean, but even regular paper is made with chemicals. I'm sure if you were to do, if you were to do your due diligence on toilet paper, there's
it's absolutely chemicals.
Fucking chemicals in there too.
Definitely chemicals.
But I think, and the other part of that is, so yes, you can educate, you can always make a change, but we also need to hold the FDA, EPA, the government, the food industry responsible and accountable. It is, but it's also, guess what? These farmers who hide out in their houses for 48 hours after spraying their potatoes know that this shit is poisonous, but they need to put food on their table.
It's the industrial machine in the United States.
It is, but everybody has to own their place in it, because if somebody stood up...
There's like 3 companies that own everything in the United States, and now they're buying up all the real estate.
Oh, this is a whole different...
You know that, right?
Yeah.
They own the food industry. They own the health industry. So if they own the food industry and they own the health industry...
Yeah, but they don't own the mom and pop place that's growing.
No, they don't own the mom and pop place, but those are going
the farmers.
Really
but
fast.
They don't own. No, farmers markets are on the increase. People again are getting educated. It's about you doing the research and going to find those things, because you can actually get good value at a farmer's market. I understand the argument about the Whole Foods and the fresh markets and the bougie grocery stores.
I didn't say they're not available. I said they're going away. The big farms that were privately mom and pop owned.
Yeah, that you're talking about.
They're going away. They're getting bought up. They're getting consolidated.
But guess what? Your grandma didn't depend on some mom and pop farm in Idaho. She grew her own shit in her backyard.
Yeah.
You understand what I'm saying? Like, so did my great aunt. So again, it's not impossible. There comes a point where you have to be accountable. And guess what? As you start putting your resources back into your community and into your family and the ground that you live, like, you could demand that your condo sets aside a parcel to have a community garden, right? Composting and things like that. You can demand that your gated community does the same thing.
It.
You have urban gardens that are sprouting up left and right in different communities that value it and want to educate their people. So again, while we can sit here and point all the fingers in the world at everybody else, the point of this podcast is about manning up. And so sometimes you got to take that back into your own hands. There's books. There's tons of information. You can be like Lenny and tell your doctor to go fuck himself when he tries to, force pills down your throat. Like, you know what I mean? If you believe that you can heal yourself, that there are alternative means, of medicine, other than just the pills that the pharmaceutical industry wants to convince you to take, then you have to be strong enough to do those things.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
And you have to have, faith that you're smart enough to know what to do.
Well, my grandmother took vitamins on a consistent, same thing, 94 years old. When she passed in her sleep, she was showing signs of Parkinson's at the end. She was 94. That's nothing out of the ordinary.
We're good with that.
That was when she started taking pills. Other than that, hated never went to the doctor, but was a firm believer that disease, break down the word, dis-ease. She didn't hold on to anger, hatred, stress. If she needed to speak her mind, she did. You know what I mean? She didn't hold on to animosity or resentment. She ate well, took her little Melaleuca vitamins.
The physical breakdown, the mental breakdown of this country is a whole nother fucking episode.
Yeah.
But it's both. It's physical and mental.
But do you know what I'm saying? Like, so this wasn't a person who was all up in the science or all up in medicine, and that wasn't her jam. When she needed, if she broke something, if she fell down when she was 70 and busted her knee, she went to see a surgeon, and they fucked her up. But whatever. Again, neither here nor there. But yeah, it's just taking responsibility and accountability for your actions, for your kids. Educate yourself, please. Again, these things are happening, and it's unfortunate that cancer and other things are on the rise, but I think that we are armed with the information we need to reverse that.
Yep.
so let's do that. Good episode, Len. High five to you. We didn't fight.
Imagine
You made
that.
sense to me.
Huh.
Hopefully, we'll see what the comments say. I'm sure somebody will have something to say about
Sorry
you
to all
knocking
my
out people's
followers.
parents. But anyway, listen.
Didn't mean to let you down.
Please like, subscribe, share, follow. Jump in the comments if you have any areas of expertise that you'd like to share with us. We would absolutely love to hear from you. We've been missing our guests as
we
of
need some
late.
guests.
We do need some guests. I mean, as much as I love seeing your beautiful face, Len.
I think Kimmy scared them all away.
Yes, I'm the one. I'm the one that scared them all away. Sure.
Clearly, we
Listen,
need to man the fuck up.
it's about accountability. I'll take it. I'll
all
man the fuck up and say I scared them all away. But anyway, we'll see you for episode 66 in the Man Cave, the ManTFup Podcast. Peace out.
Peace.